When a man chooses to go down on a woman, it is never just about the physical act of licking or stimulating her. It is about what that act communicates without words. Confidence in the bedroom is not measured only by thrusts or stamina. It is revealed in how fearlessly a man can approach the most intimate parts of his partner. A man who kneels between a woman's thighs and takes her into his mouth is showing he is not afraid of closeness, not afraid of vulnerability, and not afraid of stepping into a role that requires patience, focus, and generosity. It shows he trusts himself enough to be fully present, without insecurity clouding the moment, without shame about her body, and without hesitation in embracing her pleasure as a reflection of his strength. Confidence in this context is not loud, it is not bragging, it is not about boasting to friends afterward, it is silent, unspoken, and deeply powerful. When a man licks a woman's vagina with certainty, his movements steady and intentional, it radiates a kind of energy that a woman instantly feels. She senses whether he is nervous, whether he is disconnected, or whether he is tuned in and enjoying her responses. The truth is, women are intuitive. They read body language, breath, rhythm, and attention. When she feels him immersed, unbothered by time, and confident enough to let go of any performance anxiety, she relaxes, she opens, and she trusts him more deeply. That trust is the foundation of unforgettable intimacy. Many men rush sex, focusing on penetration as though that is the only marker of masculinity, but what sets a confident man apart is his ability to slow down. Going down on a woman requires presence, because the focus is on her reactions, not on his. A man who can lick with confidence shows he doesn't need to be in control through dominance alone. He can be in control through attentiveness and skill. That kind of control is more powerful than aggression, because it places the man in command of the moment without force. It's command through desire, through knowing his touch and his tongue have the ability to unlock waves of pleasure she cannot give herself. That awareness becomes intoxicating for both. A man without confidence will hesitate, worrying about whether she smells right, tastes right, or whether he is doing it correctly. But a man with true sexual confidence doesn't carry those fears because he understands the truth of female desire. Women crave being desired without judgment. By licking her with certainty, he is telling her, I want every part of you. I accept you fully. I am strong enough to indulge in all that you are. That reassurance is what turns a physical act into an emotional seduction. It's not about technique alone. It's about the energy behind the technique, the energy of a man who knows his worth and therefore amplifies hers. This act becomes a mirror of the man's overall sexual identity. If he is insecure, it will show in hesitation, in lack of rhythm, in impatience. If he is grounded, secure, and proud of his own sexuality, it will show in the way he savors her, the way he doesn't rush, and the way he treats her body as something worth exploring endlessly. For many women, this is what separates an ordinary lover from an extraordinary one. Not the size of his erection, not the duration of penetration, but the confidence to use his mouth without shame, without hesitation, and with total control over his own presence, is what lingers in her memory long after the act is over. The feeling of being fully desired by a man who is unshakably confident in himself. When a man takes the time to go down on a woman and focus on her pleasure, it reveals far more than physical skill, exposes the depth of his emotional intelligence. Sex is not just a physical transaction, it is an emotional language, and oral sex is one of the clearest ways that language is spoken. A man who chooses to lick, to stimulate, to explore her with patience, is demonstrating that he understands her needs go beyond his own release. He is tuned in, present, and willing to put her experience first. That act alone communicates that he values her, that he sees her as more than a body, and that her pleasure is important enough for him to slow down, listen, and respond with intention. Emotional intelligence in the bedroom is about awareness and responsiveness, and oral sex forces a man to cultivate both. He cannot simply move in a mechanical way. He has to read the subtle cues of her breath, the changes in her muscles, the sounds that escape her lips, and the way her hips respond to his movements. A man with low emotional intelligence misses these cues, rushing ahead or ignoring what her body is saying. But a man who is emotionally intelligent thrives in this space, adjusting pressure, shifting rhythm, and pausing when needed, because he is not consumed by ego, he is guided by her responses. This kind of attentiveness builds trust, and with trust comes deeper sexual freedom. The woman feels this difference immediately. She feels whether a man is licking her because he thinks it is expected, or whether he is doing it because he genuinely enjoys giving her that pleasure. A man who takes joy in her responses, who smiles against her skin when she moans, who shows no hesitation in spending time there, communicates safety and devotion. Communication allows her to surrender more completely, letting go of inhibitions, letting her body express itself without fear of judgment. She will only do that when she senses she is with a man who can handle her raw truth, her deepest vulnerability, and her unfiltered sexuality. When a man approaches a woman's pleasure with this kind of emotional intelligence, he is also sending the message that he understands sex is about connection, not just conquest. He is showing that he can be attuned to another human being's needs without feeling like it diminishes his masculinity. In fact, it elevates it. Because real strength is not in racing toward his orgasm, it is in the patience and presence it takes to guide her to hers. That requires sensitivity, restraint, and empathy, qualities often overlooked when people talk about masculinity. But in truth, they are the very traits that make a man unforgettable in bed. This act becomes a form of communication more powerful than words. By going down on her with attentiveness, a man is saying, "I see you, I respect you, I am here to make you feel alive." That message sinks deeper than any compliment or promise ever could. It builds emotional intimacy while fueling physical ecstasy. And the woman, in return, does not just experience sexual release, she experiences emotional validation, the reassurance that she is desired in the fullest sense. That combination is what creates lasting bonds, because the bedroom stops being a place of performance and becomes a place of truth. When a man chooses to focus on a woman's pleasure first, especially through oral sex, something powerful happens to his own sense of masculinity. On the surface, it may look like he is giving everything away, but in reality, he is gaining more than he realizes. The act of licking a woman's vagina with intention and skill sends a deep message to himself. He is in command of her arousal. This amplifies his masculine energy because he understands that his touch, his mouth, and his patience can unlock levels of pleasure that she cannot create alone. That realization is not only erotic, it is empowering, and it builds a sense of pride that no performance-focused penetration can deliver. Masculinity is often misunderstood as dominance or control through force, but real masculine energy is about mastery. Mastery of your own body, your own confidence, and mastery of her responses. When a man goes down on a woman with full attention, he is displaying mastery because he is showing he knows how to control the pace of desire. He can build her up slowly, hold her on the edge, then push her over into release. That kind of control does not weaken his masculinity, it heightens it, because she looks at him as the source of her surrender, the man who can unravel her with his tongue and leave her trembling. That kind of power is addictive, and it stays in her memory long after the moment is gone. There is also a psychological dimension here that cannot be ignored. When a man commits to pleasuring a woman with his mouth, he is stepping into a role of leadership and intimacy. He is saying, "Follow me, let me guide you into your pleasure." And women respond to that leadership when it comes from a place of confidence and generosity. She begins to associate his masculinity not with selfishness, but with the ability to awaken her body. And every time she remembers how deeply he made her feel, memory reinforces his masculine presence in her mind. Even in his absence, she craves him because he gave her something rare, an experience where his masculinity was tied to her fulfillment. This is why men who give unselfishly are often remembered as extraordinary lovers. They carry an aura of confidence that women can feel beyond the bedroom. When a man is comfortable giving oral sex, it means he is comfortable with intimacy, comfortable with his partner's vulnerability, and unashamed of diving into the raw truth of her body. That comfort translates into strength, and strength is what fuels attraction. Women want to feel safe and desired. Nothing communicates that more clearly than a man who uses his masculinity to elevate her pleasure instead of just chasing his own release. On a deeper level, this practice also rewires the man's own relationship with sex. He no longer sees it as a one-sided conquest, but as a shared experience where his ability to give becomes a source of pride. Pride reinforces his masculine identity in the most authentic way. He is not performing for validation. He is embodying power through connection. And every moan, every shiver, every gasp he draws out of her becomes proof of his impact, proof of his dominance, not through aggression, but through mastery of her desire. This is the kind of masculinity that leaves a permanent mark because it comes from strength, presence, and the fearless embrace of intimacy. Many men grow up believing that their sexual worth is tied to the size of their penis or how long they can last during penetration. This belief leaves them blind to what truly drives a woman's pleasure. The reality is that most women do not orgasm from penetration alone, but from clitoral stimulation. This means that a man who masters the art of licking, sucking, and teasing a woman's clitoris holds far more power in her sexual satisfaction than a man who relies solely on his size. Technique is not just about movements, it is about rhythm, pressure, and timing. And when a man learns to control these with his mouth, he outshines the myth of size every single time. Women crave attentiveness more than anything else in sex, and oral sex forces a man to slow down and listen with his senses. She is not counting inches. She is feeling how well he adapts to her body's cues. A confident tongue that knows how to circle, flick, and alternate pressure can create waves of ecstasy that penetration alone rarely achieves. The man who understands this is no longer chained to insecurity about size because he knows that skill is what sets him apart. The truth is, a woman will remember the man who made her shake uncontrollably from his mouth more vividly than the man who pounded her with little awareness of her needs. The art of technique is also about patience. Because oral sex is not something to rush through. It requires presence, an ability to stay connected to her sounds, her movements, and the shifts in her breathing. A man who licks with consistency, building her up slowly and then retreating just before release, creates anticipation that heightens her eventual climax. This shows mastery. Mastery is far more seductive than simply pushing for a finish. Women remember how a man made them feel, and when he proves that his technique can unlock her body in ways penetration never could, she craves that experience again and again. In this way, oral sex becomes the great equalizer. It removes the pressure men place on themselves to measure up physically and shifts the focus to creativity, skill, and intimacy. A woman does not compare tongue strokes in inches. She remembers how fully she let go under his mouth. That memory is powerful because it creates emotional as well as physical satisfaction. She feels seen, cared for, and completely desired. Feeling cannot be replicated by size alone. The man who invests in technique becomes unforgettable, not because of what he was born with, but because of what he learned to master. Mastering oral sex also strengthens a man's sexual identity because it gives him confidence that does not depend on fragile comparisons. He knows he has something that size-focused men overlook, an ability to bring her to orgasm in ways they cannot. That confidence bleeds into every aspect of intimacy, from the way he touches her afterward to the way he holds himself outside the bedroom. She senses his certainty, and that certainty makes him irresistible. When she knows he can make her lose control with just his mouth, his presence carries a different kind of weight, one that size alone could never provide. Who avoid giving oral sex often do so because of hidden insecurities, whether they realize it or not. They may carry discomfort about their partner's body, or they may fear that they will not perform the act correctly, which exposes a lack of confidence in their own sexual ability. These men tend to rely on penetration as their measure of masculinity, believing that size and stamina are the only things that matter, but this avoidance says more about their own insecurity than it does about their partner. A man who rejects oral sex is often a man who is not fully comfortable with intimacy, not fully grounded in his sexuality, and not fully able to handle the vulnerability that true connection demands. On the other hand, a man who embraces oral sex without hesitation communicates something entirely different. He shows that he is not afraid of closeness, not afraid of her rawness, and not afraid to be fully engaged with every part of her body. By licking her with confidence and attention, he declares that he accepts her fully, without judgment or discomfort. Acceptance is deeply erotic to a woman because it reassures her that she is safe, desired, and beautiful in her most intimate form. When a man can do this without flinching, it reflects his inner security, his ability to be strong enough in himself that he can celebrate her pleasure without feeling threatened by it. Oral intimacy has a psychological layer that is often overlooked. It demands that a man step into a giving role where the focus is entirely on his partner. For an insecure man, this may feel exposing because he cannot hide behind performance or ego. But for a secure man, this giving becomes a source of pride. It proves that his masculinity is not fragile, that he does not need constant validation. He is strong enough to prioritize her experience without losing his sense of dominance. This kind of strength is magnetic because women instinctively trust men who are unafraid of intimacy, who can look at vulnerability and meet it head on with confidence. The act of oral sex becomes more than physical stimulation. It becomes a mirror of the man's own comfort with himself. Who licks with ease and enthusiasm shows that he is comfortable with desire, comfortable with her body, and comfortable with his role as a giver. He is not questioning his worth, not second-guessing his ability, and not carrying shame about sexuality. Instead, he is fully immersed in the moment, confident enough to know that her pleasure is a reflection of his power. Kind of presence speaks volumes, and it makes him stand out as a lover who cannot be compared to those who hold back out of fear. In the end, oral intimacy protects a man from the trap of sexual insecurity because it forces him to rise above self-doubt. It gives him a chance to prove to himself and to his partner that he is unashamed. He is capable of handling intimacy without retreat, and that his masculinity is not tied to superficial measures, but to depth, attentiveness, and courage. This is why men who embrace it often radiate confidence in all areas of life. They have conquered the fears that hold others back, and in doing so, they embody a kind of strength that women can feel both in and out of the bedroom. Sexual health and general health are never separate, no matter how much people try to treat them as different issues. The truth is, the man who eats poorly, ignores his fitness, and neglects his body will see those choices show up in the bedroom. Erections, stamina, and desire are directly linked to blood flow, muscle strength, and hormonal balance. A man who lacks the right nutrients, who starves his body of minerals like magnesium, zinc, and potassium, is also starving his sexual vitality. This is why men who invest in their health feel a different level of energy. They last longer, stay harder, and recover faster, because they understand that what fuels the body also fuels desire. Magnesium, for example, is not just about preventing muscle loss as men age, it is about sustaining sexual performance. Strong muscles are vital not only in the gym but in intimacy, because lovemaking is physical labor. From thrusting to holding positions to sustaining rhythm, the body needs endurance, and endurance comes from cellular energy. A man deficient in magnesium feels fatigue quicker, his recovery slows, and his sexual drive weakens. By contrast, a man who takes care of these deeper nutritional needs radiates vigor, because his body has the foundation to support his passion. His strength is not a facade, it is lived, it is felt, and his partner can sense it in every touch. Beyond minerals, health in general is reflected in sexual encounters. A man with strong cardiovascular health has better circulation, which means fuller erections and heightened sensitivity. Who prioritizes balanced hormones through proper diet and stress management has a sex drive that does not fizzle out. Women feel this difference, because sexual health is not only about erections or stamina, it is about presence, consistency, and desire that does not fade after a few minutes. When a man shows up strong in his body, he shows up strong in his intimacy, and this makes the experience more fulfilling for both partners. There is also a psychological dimension to this connection. A man who takes his wellness seriously feels confident in himself, and that confidence bleeds into his sexual identity. He does not worry about losing stamina halfway through. He does not fear weakness, because he knows his body is prepared. That peace of mind allows him to focus on his partner instead of his performance anxiety. He can lick her, touch her, penetrate her, and stay present because he trusts his body to support him. This is the kind of man who creates deep satisfaction because his focus is no longer split between fear and pleasure. His health gives him freedom and intimacy. When a man merges health with pleasure, he unlocks a cycle of strength that builds upon itself. His wellness fuels his sexual energy. His sexual energy fuels his confidence, and that confidence drives him to maintain his health further. Women are naturally drawn to this because they crave a man who is not only passionate but also vital. They want to feel the strength of a body that is cared for, the fire of a man who respects himself, the stamina of someone who values long-term vitality over quick satisfaction. This is why the men who connect wellness with sexuality stand apart. They embody a level of attraction that cannot be faked, because it is rooted in the very foundation of their being.